All right, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to talk about my experience as a stats or statistics tutor in college. Now that sounds boring, I know, but it's about lessons I learned, entrepreneurial lessons I learned that I never got through a textbook in school. There will be several topics in this video that I'll expand on in later videos, so I will mark them out for you so you can look forward to seeing those videos coming up. All right, let's get started. The first section. Persistence. I've always had a learning disability that I can't even pronounce the name of. And what is the disability is I have a really hard time remembering numbers. So as a child and adult, I tried memorizing the basic arithmetic tables, and that eludes me. So that means like subtraction, addition, multiplication, and division. Just couldn't do it. And like I said, as an adult, I've even tried it, got flashcards out, whatever, and like 24 to 48 hours, it was gone. So that really was a hindrance in math. So even as a small child, I wanted to become a medical doctor, and I knew to do so, I'd have to do well in school and get into college. And math just tortured me. I just couldn't get through it. And as much as my parents and the teachers tried to help me, nothing worked. It really didn't. I'm sure today they've got something to aid people with my disability, but back then they didn't. And one day in middle school, I discovered a workaround, and I see a lot of things on the internet about fancy different ways to do math that doesn't require memorization other than a process. I haven't seen what I use like that, but I'm sure if I used one of those back then, I would have done quite well. So anyhow, I still use it today. It's slow, but it was a real hindrance. Once I was able to do this, it allowed me to move on in my math levels. I went to higher math courses, including calculus and statistics, and believe it or not, even though I hated lower math, I loved these two subjects. The thing that stressed me out about calculus was that there were no calculators allowed. So I had to still do the arithmetic myself, even though that was a lower level math, but they didn't want you to have any calculators in class whatsoever. But anyhow, calculus, if you've ever taken it, for me, it's a three-step process. First, you do the calculus level of math, and that breaks down into algebraic equations, and from that it goes into the arithmetic, which is the thing that always stuck me. I remember in calculus taking tests or having to do quizzes in class. I would do all the first two parts of it, the calculus and the algebra, and then leave the arithmetic till the end if I had time. Anyhow, so my arch nemesis was always there. Now comes statistics. It was required for my new major, which was psychology. I needed it for my degree. I needed to do well in it for just to get my psych degree, also for the entrance exam to graduate school and graduate school. So the next statement is, what I worked on just now was basically perseverance. I kept working on it until I could make it happen. The next step, or next section, is overthinking. I remember when I took my first stats class. It was pretty easy until I got to the chapter on probability. I remember I was at the library in the study hall. All the tables were really long. It was like what was it? A science classroom. Long tables, all facing the same direction like a classroom. I always went to the front so I wouldn't have the distractions, visual or hearing, of the other people in the room, so I could really focus on my schoolwork. I was working on the problems and reading over and over and over of probability, and probability was just, I kid you not. I kept doing it. I didn't give up, but I just couldn't do it. I was there for hours. I didn't know where to go for help because I worked in the math lab and there was no statistics tutors there. But I just couldn't do it. And there I was sitting, and I was starting to give up hope. I thought, oh no, not this again. My brain just can't do it. Then I thought it's over. No degree, no graduate school, no license, no career, anything like that. And the thing is, I sat in the very front of the room, so I didn't have to have the embarrassment of the tears rolling down my cheeks, because I thought my career, my life was over. But sitting in the front of the room, I didn't have embarrassment to to pile onto my emotional issues right then and there. So I kept at it. I mean, like I said, I was there hours, and then my internal coach came out in me, telling me to relax, to breathe, reminding me of other times I was stuck and I got through it. And that I was pretty smart. You know, I wasn't no dummy. I did really well in college. I worked hard at it, but I did pretty well. Then I stepped away from that section for a while. I just thought, you know what, I gotta do something else. My brain has to readjust. I have to either pick up another subject or do something else that I brought with me to study. When I came back to the probability section of the stats book, I could figure it out. It was easy. I was making it way too complicated. I passed the class and the next level up as well, but I was overthinking. Instead of just taking it for where it was, I was trying to make it more complicated than it was. So anyhow, that was something I had to overcome, and I still have that issue today. I still have a tendency to overthink, but that's something that can, if for those of us that do that, that can really get in our way. Anyhow, what makes life better now? We all have phones, right? And they have calculators built into them. Thank you, Steve Jobs, for putting that in there. It makes life a lot easier. All right, the next concept is entrepreneurship. I was not a business major. I mean, even though in the stats class, I think there were some problems that related to business, but that wasn't my thing. I wanted to become a psychologist, you know, an applied psychologist, and help people. So anyhow, as I said earlier, I worked in the math lab as a tutor. And being a starving student, it was part of my work study for my financial aid. And it was a great way to supplement that financial aid was by working. And back then, I don't know if they still do, but work study was basically your job was had extra funds so that you got paid more than minimum wage. And it wasn't a lot of money, but it was better than flipping burgers. So anyhow, I tutored everything from balancing a checkbook to calculus and statistics. And so everybody would come in and they would need a math question. I mean, even people that weren't really math students were coming in for help. Anyhow, my boss started giving me harder and harder students to work with that other tutors weren't willing to do. I guess maybe because he saw there was some promise in me that I was able to work with people with some disabilities, English as a second language, students who are remedial in many other ways. And some couldn't even read well. So I helped them like with their books to read it to them. I mean, that's the level I got down to. Maybe because I had a little more patience than the other tutors that were there. Let's see here. Yeah, some didn't even graduate high school. So working with more challenging clients gave me a reputation, and soon more people were coming into the math lab than before just to see me to get help with their math questions or the math homework. And even regardless of the subject, I had people coming in, even though it's a math lab, I had people coming in with other subjects because they had a hard time understanding certain things. So as I worked with these clients or these students, I started realizing the issue wasn't necessarily math per se. It was poor study habits. And so since I had a hard time with school and studying as well, I studied all sorts of study techniques, things like that, to help me get through school. So I started teaching those to these people. And when I was doing tutoring, the thing that got me most excited is when they would come up to me and say, hey, you know, I know how to do this on my own. I don't need your help anymore. And I got phone calls like that. I had people coming into the math lab telling me like that. And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed getting people independent in whatever it is they're doing. And that was my celebration. I would celebrate with them, high fives or whatever. But yeah, I didn't see them again. Sometimes they'd come in and say, you know what, I I got the next level of math and I'm doing really well, and it's because you helped me out. So anyhow, that was better than the pay that I got, let me tell you. Okay, going solo, this is the next section. I remember the ads that people put up on bulletin boards in colleges. I'm sure now with everything being electronic, you don't have those. I haven't been on a college campus, but almost 10 years now. And I don't even know if they have bulletin boards other than electronic. But anyhow, they would put up an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. And I still think people do it like when they have lost pets. But anyhow, it'd have a picture, like a lost pet. They would have a picture of the pet, cat, dog, whatever, and give a description and how much they miss them, the whole bit. And then down at the very bottom, they would put their phone number, either handwritten or typed. And they cut it so that you could rip off that number and take it with you. And that's what a lot of people did back then. If they're selling something like, selling their car or other tutors, things like that, would put those up there. And I thought, you know what? I want to try this as well. Try this at home. See if I can make a few extra bucks, because when you're in a work study or have any other job, the math lab had hours. They weren't open in evenings, and they weren't open on the weekends, and I was available. And so I gave it a shot. I had nothing to lose. And I thought, well, possibly I can make more money than the wages I was getting paid in the math lab. Because in the math lab, if there was no one in there, I had to be there, and I got paid regardless of whether I was helping anybody or not. But I thought, you know what? I'm going to give this a shot and see if I can make a few extra bucks and get a few more clients, especially now that I'm starting to get a reputation with my ability to tutor people. Anyhow, let's see here, getting back here. And things are, again, I could do it on my schedule. I could do it evenings and weekends when I wasn't in class. And I could set it up to where, it'd be a good study break. Have someone come over to my home and an hour and a half session, and give me a break from my studies or whatever it is I was doing. Anyhow, regardless, it worked. I started getting phone calls, and it started out just stuff that I was doing in the math lab, anything from help me balance my checkbook to algebra or trig or whatever. And so I started out doing all the math subjects. The lower subjects weren't in much demand because people were able to get help from their teachers, professors, and the other tutors in the math lab. So I didn't have a lot of people coming asking for that help as much as other things. And but the thing is once I had stats under my belt, statistics, things started taking off. Stats classes were what they call impacted. I don't know if they still use that term, or I don't know if everybody watching this video has been in college, but some classes, they have less sections than there's a demand for. Like in engineering, I remember engineering and business when I was in college were impacted. In other words, there was a wait list to get in. So going to a statistics class was interesting, because the first week people are there, people needed it for their degrees as well, whether it's any of the soft sciences, sociology, anthropology, math, and psychology and business. They're all needed for those majors. And so they would show up because they need it. And it was standing room only, I kid you not. I remember both of my classes, both elementary and intermediate, excuse me, were impacted the first part of the semester. Then after a while, you notice that the standing people are gone. You would see that some of the desks were empty now. So about mid-semester, about half the seats were full. And as time went on, especially after midterms, you would see there would only be about 10 students left. So it's hard. And the subject is hard because it's something most of us don't use that on a daily basis to wrap your head around. But the math part wasn't that hard. It was basically arithmetic and algebra skills to do it. But the concepts were challenging to a lot of people because it's not part of our culture. And so anyhow, I soon realized I had a monopoly on the local market, because No one else was advertising for statistics tutoring, and there was no one else in the math lab that did it. I was the only guy that did it. So that was a benefit. Having a monopoly in any business is a good thing because you don't have any competition. Anyhow, over time I realized I could raise my fee with a little impact on demand, and I just did it as an experiment to see if I could make some more money because, again, here I am going to school full time. The only job I had or income I had was financial aid and working in the math department, and I also worked in the counseling department at times. But anyhow, it didn't pay a lot. And if I wanted anything to do, like get my car fixed or go out on a date, I didn't have money for that kind of stuff. I had to just work along with what I had. Anyhow, but then the demand was higher than I had time available. And I think that's the next section, reputation. I think that's where it came from. But I always thought if you raise prices, the demand would go down, but that wasn't the case. So let's talk about reputation now. Although I never met the teacher, I knew of him. I knew his son, but I never met him personally. He learned about me through the students that came to me for getting tutoring. And he, I guess either they gave it to him or he asked for it, put my name and phone number up on the chalkboard, and it was there like for a few years while I was still in school. And he learned that I could really help his students. I guess it felt good for him because instead of having kids, these are adults, having people flunking out and doing poorly on their tests and getting frustrated, they started doing better. So anyhow, I got a reputation. Now this is interesting. This is something I want to dig into later, and this is more of a business sells kind of a concept, but I discovered it accidentally. I didn't read it in a book until 20, 30 years later. It's called prestige pricing. It goes by other names as well. But it's a way of pricing things that are counterintuitive to what you think. And what that is that generally we think if prices go up, we wait for a sale. I want a new iPhone, is there a sale on it? Does Verizon have a sale going on? Or, I only go and buy new clothes when they have sales going on, those kind of things. So a lot of people will wait for the prices to drop. But this is counterintuitive. And what I found out is that as I started raising my rates, and I did it primarily to slow people down from coming to me because I was a student, I had to study for my exams and had projects and things to do. I didn't have unlimited resources while I was in school to tutor everyone that wanted my help. So I raised my prices, and some people would call and I told them what my fee is, and they said, I can't afford that. So I thought, this might slow them down. I felt bad for them, of course, but I really needed time to work on my stuff because getting into grad school, you got to have the test scores, you got to have the high grades, the whole bit. So I couldn't risk not doing that myself. But as I raised the fees, I had some people that said they can't work with me because they can't afford me. But I noticed that the phone calls were increasing. They weren't going away, they were increasing. And so what this prestige pricing is basically if you have a product, even if it's the same quality as any other product, if people see that it has a higher price than something else at a rack, you go to a department store and you see a shirt, say for instance, Hawaiian shirt here, Hawaiian shirt there, and they probably came out of the same manufacturer. But when it has a higher price, some people will buy it because they assume subconsciously that it has higher quality. And so that's where that came from. So anyhow, eventually I was turning away more and more potential clients, and I didn't have any more bandwidth for all of them. And I felt bad. I really did. I know these people needed help, but I needed my time. So in walks somebody, a new student for me. The next topic is about scaling. This guy was not fresh out of high school. He was family man. He was in his career, but he was trying to work on his degree, 1 or 2 classes a semester to get a business degree, because a lot of places, if you get a degree in a certain field, they'll either give you a promotion or give you a raise. Anyhow, he wanted to work on his career, and he was in business. So he had some business smarts. So scaling. So one day this student came in. He was older, had a family, working full time, and working for his business degree. Came in, and really nice guy. I mean, just very friendly. We did some chit chat while I was tutoring him, and after the session, he thanked me for the help, and he booked his next visit, which that's typical. And then he was the one that told me about my name and number on the blackboard. That's when I found out that the professor was advertising my services. And as I'm walking him out the door, as we were approaching the door, he turned around and told me, he says, everyone in the class wants to work with me. And that was kind of like an eye-opener for me, because I never heard that before from anything else as a tutor or anybody else, that that was in that kind of demand. Anyhow, they all wanted to work with me, especially around test time, which makes sense. Everybody wants help to get that A or whatever they want on the test, or pass, even some people just to pass. He told me many of the low-income students can't afford my rate, and I told him I knew that. And I told him about my rare time availability and why I raised my rates. I was trying to slow down demand. And, I wanted him to know I wasn't doing it to be mean, is that I just needed my time for my studies. So he made me a proposition that at first I balked at, because one, I've never taught in a class format, and I've never done more than one-on-one for tutoring. He suggested the whole class come to my home. Now, I said whole class, so what is this, 30 plus students maybe? I don't know. I don't remember. It's a long time ago. And I hesitated, because I thought, because he said about lowering my rate and doing it in a class format. And I thought, I don't know, man. It just sounds like a hassle, because I had nothing in my house that I could use as a class. I don't have seats, and I don't have a blackboard or anything like that. But anyhow, he says, if I lower my rate, more people can come and get help. And he said I'd make significantly more money, my rate, in a group setting. And I told him, let me think about it. And, I just thought, I'm not ready for this. It sounds like a lot of work. And one-on-one I can do off the top of my head. In a class setting, that's a whole different ballgame, different dynamic. And I don't think I was capable of it, because I've never done it before. So anyhow, that night I sat down and ran the numbers about what he proposed, and thinking how I could accommodate such a large group in my apartment, and how I could present without using a chalkboard. So I thought about it. I ran the numbers, and I thought, this is really good if those people actually show up. I was somewhat doubting that, I would get a full class there, and I did. I ended up with a full class. Anyhow, I called him back and said I would try. So I told him to present my offer to the rest of the class, and I told him my availability. Later that day, after they had class, he called me and says, about this day and time, anything from like an hour to an hour and a half to 2 hours, or, if we can do more. He says, we're coming up to midterms and people are really in a panic, and so we might be able to do this a couple more times. And I said, well, we'll see. Anyhow, the first night came for the group session, and it ran longer than an hour, which was nice, because I was charging them all by an hourly rate. So if it went over, that means even more money, right? I'm just thinking money here, my income. I had over 20 people in the living room, and I think it was the whole class. Some were sitting on my couch, some on some folding chairs, some standing, some sitting on the floor. I was sitting on the floor. To get prepared for it, I pulled out a couple extra spiral notebooks, turned them landscape so that I could write it like on a chalkboard. And I got some markers so it would be thicker and easier to see from a distance. And I thought, oh, I'm just going to wing this. Let's see what happens. I didn't think it was going to go well. I figured it'd be a failure. People would leave. And anyhow, when I started teaching, sometimes I went on question and answer, Q&A, like, what do you got? What do you need? And some people said, this chapter is so hard, so difficult, that we want you to reteach it. And I literally retaught the chapter to the whole class. And after my initial nervousness about doing this, it's just started becoming more and more easier and easier. By the end of the night, I stood by the front door, and the guy that proposed this idea, he stayed towards the back of the line because he wanted to talk to me. And I stood by the door with my hand out, and people were putting cash and checks in my hand, and I wasn't putting it in my pocket. I just left it there because I was in shock. The pile was getting thicker and thicker. And so as they were leaving, they were placing their cash and checks in my palm. I wasn't adding it up as they passed. I just was trying to be calm about it, not act like I was shocked, which I was. And I was trying to keep my composure as the pile grew. I was not prepared for this. To that point, it's more than I ever paid in my hourly rate. I don't remember what it was at the time. The next day, after I sat down, because he said, how was that for you? Would you be willing to do this again? And I said, yeah, I think it went well. What do you think? He says, yeah, I mean, all the students were thanking you on the way out, and I think you did a great presentation, the whole bit. And I was just blown away by the whole thing. So the next day I called the guy and I said, I thanked him from the bottom of my heart, and I will do this again. And I told him that this completely changed my mind about how to run. I didn't think it was a business. I just thought of myself as a tutor. But anyhow, lesson learned. And so that's scaling. Scaling meaning taking something from a small thing, like a one-on-one coaching thing, serving more people. The more people you serve, the more income you make. And yeah, lesson learned, man. No kidding. Anyway, anyhow, needless to say, I had several more group teachings after that, and I still did one-on-one sessions with people that requested it when time permitted. So yeah, I never learned that from a book anywhere. In fact, I didn't even know what it was called until a couple decades later. Anyhow, let's get down here to regrets. Now, we learn from good experiences and bad. So in hindsight, I should have never completed college. And let me tell you why. Yes, I did get a degree. I did get high scores, and I did get accepted into graduate school, but I did not take any of those positions. I did well, worked really hard, learned a lot of things, but honestly, because I didn't stay in that field, I went into computing IT. The only thing I did leverage from my college time was that I took programming. Now they call it coding, and that's what got me into that field. And that's a whole nother topic. But anyhow, it was something that was easy for me, and I thought I could make a quick buck. I never wanted to make it into a career, which I did. But anyhow, in hindsight, what I would have done is stuck with that business model, and not necessarily teaching or tutoring, but starting to follow things I could do that I could turn into a business. I should have only audited the classes I was interested in or could further my learning for my purposes, like whether it was in a business or whatever. Most of what I learned, including statistics, I never used again, Same thing goes for high school. I mean, I'm not discouraging anyone from graduating high school, but most of what I learned in that school did not do me any good for my adult life. So anyhow, like I said before, how I made my living out of college, it was my backup plan, was working in information systems, information technology. And wasn't a bad career, but all that work and everything else didn't pan out. My second regret, after I retired from IT and I ran the numbers of what I was doing when I had my own little business of tutoring, I adjusted it for inflation. And had I quit college and just went part-time and focused on my own business, I would have ended up much better off financially, a financial position, than being addicted to a paycheck. And again, let's see here, do I have anything? I don't have a check here. But anyhow, that's a whole nother topic to talk about, our addiction to our paycheck, because that's what happened, okay? When I ran the numbers, I realized including all the benefits that I got working in IT, I would have been better off had I run my own show. So yeah, it started out as tutoring, but I'm sure I would have got into other things as well. But the thing is that getting married, starting a life, you start having vacations, you want that money, you want that paid time off, things like that. And then I was getting the itch again. Several times when I was in my career, I had the itch to go out and do my own thing. The last time I did it, when I was still working, I realized I only had a couple of years left till retirement. So yeah, selling my soul to the devil there. So I was addicted to my paycheck and my retirement. So anyhow, we'll talk about these other topics deeper in further videos, but I just want to give you a heads up that a couple things to pull from this. One is that keep your eyes open for opportunities, seriously, because I stumbled upon tutoring just to make an extra buck, and I was turning it into a business. And the more I did that, the more I learned, not from books per se, like the stuff I learn now primarily from YouTube, the University of YouTube. And yeah, you learn from other people. Just go. If you have an idea, try it out. Do it as a side hustle. You may fail, but you're going to learn something as a result. Okay, so I highly encourage you to do that. Even if you do have a career and you're working full time, you never know. Something might come up that you really like and it's really profitable, and you may quit your day job and do that as a career or as a business. All right, everybody, that's all I have for this video. I hope you found it helpful. I really do. And as always, thanks again for watching. Appreciate it. I love seeing eyeballs on my stuff. And always, do the YouTubey stuff. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, comment, share with others. Please share with others. I'm hoping, and every time I do one of these videos, I'm trying to improve what I do, get better lessons out there, make the video itself a little more pleasurable to watch. Like today, I got a headset on. I'm trying that out to see how that works with my sound and all that. But yeah, because I want to get my videos out. I really do. I really want to help people. I am retired, and this is what I enjoy doing, is helping other folks. And also, if I can really help people, just like with my tutoring, if I ever hear back from someone, it's like, wow, this video is really good. Because of this, I was able to do that, and I'm taking off in whatever it is, whichever direction they're going. So anyhow, I will see you in the next video. For now, take care.